Yeah.
All right, we're live.
Hey,
Welcome. This is conversation number two of Donald Trump. The case against Donald Trump. He has disqualified himself many ways, many times. The first one, we talked about his racist views, which are very consistent throughout time,
just some of
and
his racist views, yeah.
some of them. And then we connected it to the violence, the El Paso shooter, for example. And this is a related one, and all these things kind of come together because it's about the Constitution on one hand. It's also about the fear mongering and the stereotyping on the other. Those two things connected. This one, just his Muslim ban from his first administration, hopefully his last administration, but we shall see. And this is an interesting thing to think about because it was unconstitutional and it was thrown out, and he knew that, but he did it anyway. And he did it because I think, in my opinion, it helped him get elected. He had his big announcement. And so I think January 6th, which is sort of uh, the climax of all this unconstitutional stuff, really is the end of a logical process that began with how his campaign started, which was in this, you know, hateful rhetoric about groups of people, entire groups of people. Mike Pence said he should never be president again. We'll skip that because we played it last time. But the argument is that Trump has disqualified himself many times by putting himself and his victory over the Constitution, the country, the people. And this is just an example. So in the United States Constitution, First Amendment is freedom of speech, of course, freedom to assemble, freedom of the press. Also, the Establishment Clause, where no religion can establish itself or prohibit the free exercise of another religion. So it's very basic to the Constitution, the freedom of religion. Um, and Donald Trump knew that when he took office. But this is from his campaign.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on.
And you hear the cheers.
Yeah, please clap.
Yeah, they did clap.
Don-
All right. There's another thing that happened when he came to Minnesota. In that last conversation, I played a clip where he says, "In Minnesota, you have good genes." He's talking about how his genetic racehorse theory stuff. But he came to Minnesota. This is right before the 2016 election, and he said this, and it paints the whole entire Somali community along with, his Muslim ban and uh, that whole thing. He's talking here about the Somali Muslim community in Minnesota.
Here in Minnesota, you've seen firsthand the problems caused with faulty refugee vetting, with large numbers of Somali refugees coming into your state without your knowledge, without your support or approval, and with some of them then joining ISIS and spreading their extremist views.
Right. Uh, there were some Somali young people that joined ISIS, and they were convicted and went to trial. That's a whole nother story. But the way he says it, right? He's talking about this whole entire community in a way.
That they're all a part of it or something, and they're all ISIS terrorists or something.
Right. So then he was elected. He put his Muslim ban in place. It was a huge controversy at the time, of course. So, going on the record, remembering this, it was pointed out that it was unconstitutional right away, and it was sued. And this is from the lawsuit that it was it didn't go all the way to court. It was the Muslim ban was put on hold, and he withdrew it, and then they changed it and stuff. But the defendant's executive order is precisely what defendant Trump promised repeatedly and openly: a Muslim ban. It is moreover, on admission of defendant Trump himself, a ban that favors Christians over Muslims, in contravention of the clearest command of the Establishment Clause, that's the First Amendment, that one religious denomination cannot be officially preferred over another. So this is from the case that wound up being successful. So a lot of people have forgotten too that there was a bombing here in Minnesota in 2017. Do you remember this happening?
I remember people talking about it, but I don't remember the specific details.
But this just to me is like the way that this sort of rhetoric and language that paints all entire groups in a certain way, Muslims as terrorists, for example, immigrants as rapists and drug dealers and killers, as we saw in Conversation One, has a very real consequence for people who are just innocent citizens. It's 4.5 million Muslims that live in the United States. So it's a large number of people that he paints with this big brush, this wide brush. And this is from the Justice Department about the August 4th, 2017, or August 5th, 2017 bombing of the Dar al Farooq Islamic Center in Bloomington, Minnesota, here in our state. It says August 4th and 5th, 2017, Harry, McWhorter, and Morris drove in a pickup truck from Illinois to Bloomington, Minnesota to bomb the DAF Islamic Center. About an hour outside of Minnesota, Hari disclosed to McWhorter and Morris that there was a pipe bomb in the truck and that they were going to bomb a mosque. Hari targeted DAF specifically to terrorize Muslims into believing that they are not welcome in the United States and should leave the country. Here's a little bit of a clip about it.
Two men who helped bomb a Bloomington mosque back in 2017 will each spend more than a decade behind bars. Michael McWhorter and Joe Morris were sentenced to 16 and 14 years. It is far less time than what the guidelines call for. Caroline Cummings explains why the victims of the crime asked for compassion.
This is what our faith teaches us, to forgive each other.
Standing in the very room where the pipe bomb went off, terrorizing Muslims in the Twin Cities, members of Dar al Farooq say they forgive two of the men behind their pain.
In a profound act of healing for our community in living with our faith, our community has chosen to forgive them.
They joined other faith leaders in petitioning a federal judge for clemency in the sentencing of Michael McWhorter and Joe Morris for their roles in the attack in August 2017.
We are able, despite our pain, to see the humanity of our fellow human beings and to understand their mitigating circumstances, which is why we have asked the judge for leniency.
All right. So just one more example for me of how his rhetoric creates this climate or contributes to a climate. He didn't create it. It was there before him and he used it to come to power, but it was about his victory, about winning. And even along the way, it was fine for him to break the Constitution, to target one group, because he knew it would get his base going, would get his people excited, as you saw in that first video when he announces the ban, to cheers. So, any thoughts?
Well, I think you're 100% right that Donald Trump uses his power and influence to spread hate and violence against other minorities and other groups to fire up his base and to make them energized and to feel like they're being attacked by these people, even though they're really not. But
exactly. And to me, it's an example of him putting himself and his victory. That's the reason behind it. It's about him having power and keeping his power, even over the citizens of the country, many of which are Muslim citizens who now are feeling targeted, feel like they're not represented by him, that he's not their president, and they're not welcome in this country. And that's the whole point of that bombing. They said they wanted Muslims to receive the message that they do not belong and they cannot be in the country. They should leave. All right, that's conversation 2.
See ya. Bye.
Peace out. and